Why 97% stay broke, and how the 3% think differently about wealth. Let me tell you a story, son. Not one from a book. Not one from a podcast or seminar. This one's personal, real. It's from the trenches of life, where lessons don't come in neat little boxes, but in broken hearts, empty pockets, missed chances, and sleepless nights. I was 23 years old, sitting on a torn-up couch in a one-room apartment that smelled like regret. I had $17 to my name. Not $17 in savings, no. That was everything. Wallet, drawer, between the cushions, all in. And I remember staring at the ceiling that night, thinking, how the hell did I get here? I had dreams, big ones. I was going to be a millionaire by 25. I was going to drive the nice car, live in the big house, help my parents retire early. You know the drill, but instead, I had bills stacked up like a Jenga tower, a job that barely paid enough to keep the lights on, and the heavy silence of failure sitting in the room with me like a second shadow. Now here's the thing. That night was the turning point. Not because I got a big break. Not because someone saved me. No, it was the turning point. Because I finally realized something I had been thinking like the 97%. Let me explain. See, most people, and I mean good people, honest people, stay broke not because they're lazy, or dumb, or unlucky. No, they stay broke because no one ever taught them how wealth really works. They taught us how to work for money, not how to think about money. That's the trap. That's the lie. That's what keeps 97% stuck. Now you're sitting here, young, full of fire, full of questions. I can see it in your eyes. You want to know what the 3% do differently, and I'm going to tell you. But I'm not going to give you a list of tips like some self-help blog. No, sir. I'm going to walk you through a journey, a mindset shift. The kind of shift that turned me from a broke, frustrated kid into a man who built wealth, freedom, and peace. So sit back, listen close. Let's take a walk together. Chapter 1. The Broke Blueprint. Let's start with how most people are raised. Maybe this sounds familiar. Go to school, get good grades, get a safe job, work hard, retire someday. Now don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with education or working hard. But have you noticed that following that formula rarely leads to wealth? I know folks who worked 40 years, never missed a day, and still struggle in retirement. I know teachers, janitors, office workers, good people, who followed the rules and ended up tired and broke. Why? Because the blueprint they were given was never designed to build wealth. It was designed to build dependence. It's like planting corn and expecting roses. You can water it, love it, sing to it, but if it's the wrong seed, the harvest won't change. Most people are given the seed of survival, not success. I'll never forget this guy I used to work with, Ronnie, hardest working man I'd ever met. First in the office, last to leave. Wore the same brown suit every day. Packed a peanut butter sandwich to save money. He believed in the system. He worked 38 years for that company. On his last day, they gave him a plaque, a shiny little thing with his name on it. Thank you for your service. 2 years later, I saw him bagging groceries at a local store. I said, Ronnie, what happened? He looked down, smiled with tired eyes and said, pension wasn't enough, but at least I got a discount on bread. That broke me. That moment, because I realized I was heading down the same road. Ronnie wasn't stupid, he wasn't lazy. He followed the blueprint, but the blueprint was broken. And if you're reading this, chances are you're holding the same one. Chapter 2. The first lie. Money is evil. You've heard it. Money is the root of all evil. They say it like it's gospel, like it's truth. But it's not. That phrase, it's a twisted version of a scripture. The real one says, the love of money is the root of all evil, not money itself. Money's not evil. Money's a tool. Money is like a brick. You can build a hospital with it, or throw it through a window. The brick didn't change. You did. But you see, the 97% are taught to fear money, to resent those who have it, to believe that wanting more is greedy. That's why most folks never study money, never ask how it works, never sit down to learn about investing, compounding, value creation. Because deep down they're ashamed of wanting wealth. Let me ask you something. If you were ashamed of food, would you study nutrition? If you thought love was evil, would you pursue a relationship? Of course not. So how can a man build wealth if he's ashamed of money? Now listen, wealth isn't about gold chains or mansions. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about freedom, options, the ability to take care of your parents, to give your kids the life you never had, to sleep at night without fear of the rent. That's wealth. And the 3%, they honor money. They treat it with respect. They see it for what it is, a mirror, a reflection of value, discipline, creativity. They're not afraid to talk about it, to learn about it, to chase it, not because they worship it, but because they understand that money flows to value and they want to become valuable. Chapter 3. The 97% work for money. The 3% make money work for them. Let's get practical now. How do most people earn money? They trade time for it. You work an hour, you get paid for that hour. If you don't work, you don't get paid. Simple. But here's the trap. Time is limited. You've got 24 hours in a day. That's it. And if you're selling hours, you've capped your income by default. You'll never out-earn the clock. Now the 3%, they understand leverage. They know how to make money while they sleep. Not because they're lucky, not because they were born rich, but because they learned how to build assets. An asset is anything that puts money in your pocket without needing your time. It could be a business, a rental property, a dividend-paying stock, a book, a course, a licensing deal. You create it once, it pays you forever. Let me tell you about Lisa. Single mom, 2 kids, worked a job during the day, wrote ebooks at night. Her first book made $37 in a month. That was it. Most folks would have quit. She didn't. She wrote another, then another. By the 10th one, she was making $5,000 a month on autopilot. She didn't just sell her time. She built a machine. That's the 3% mindset. And here's the kicker. Building assets isn't about being a genius. It's about being intentional. About shifting from how much can I earn today to what can I build today that will pay me tomorrow. Chapter 4. Scarcity versus abundance. Let's get into the mindset now. The broke mindset, what I call the scarcity mind, believes there's never enough, not enough money, not enough time, not enough opportunities. So people hoard, they fear, they shrink, they compete. I once mentored a young man, Jason, brilliant, talented, but he always seemed anxious. One day I asked him, "What's holding you back?" He said, "I'm afraid there's not enough room for me to succeed. Too many people already doing what I want to do." I smiled. I said, "Jason, do you know how many pizza shops there are in this city?" He said, "A lot." I said, "And they're all busy. There's always room for value, always room for excellence. The 3% don't compete. They create, they collaborate. They understand that abundance isn't something you find. It's something you become. They walk into a room and ask, 'How can I serve?' Not 'What can I take?' They know that money flows where problems are solved. That's abundance." Chapter 5. Emotions make you broke. Discipline builds wealth. Let me tell you something that might sting a little. Most people are broke not because of circumstances, but because of choices. Hard truth, I know. But someone's gotta say it to you straight. Every broke man I've ever mentored had one thing in common. They let emotions make their decisions. Impulse, fear, pride, shame. They spend when they're stressed. They quit when they're scared. They stay stuck because of what others might think. Emotions are powerful, but emotions don't build empires. Discipline does. You ever heard of that phrase, "Do what you feel like doing"? Sounds good in a song, but in real life, it'll wreck you. Let me give you an example. I had a buddy, Marcus, big dreams. Said he wanted to retire his mom, travel the world, own properties. But every Friday night, he'd blow $300 on clubs, drinks, and sneakers. I asked him once, "You said you want to build wealth, right?" He said, "Yeah, of course." I said, "Then why are you acting broke on payday?" He got quiet. See, Marcus didn't need more money. He needed more control. And that's where most people lose. They think success is about motivation. Let me tell you. Motivation fades. It dies by Tuesday. But discipline, That's what separates the 3% from the 97%. Discipline is getting up early when the bed feels like heaven. Discipline is skipping that impulse buy and investing it instead. Discipline is saying no to fun today, so you can say yes to freedom tomorrow. Discipline is doing the boring stuff consistently, reading, saving, investing, learning. The 3% don't always feel like it. They just do it anyway. Chapter 6. The 97% live for now. The 3% build for tomorrow. Let's talk time. Most broke folks have a short game mentality. They're looking for a win this week, a deal today, a dopamine hit right now. But wealth, real wealth, it's built over years, quietly, slowly, brick by brick. The 97% ask, how much will I get paid for this? The 3% ask, what will this pay me in 10 years? Big difference. I remember working 3 jobs when I first started saving. I'd stash away $50, $100 here and there. People laughed, said it was too little to matter. But I wasn't saving for now. I was training my mindset. And I'll never forget the day I sat across from my old college friend Brian at a cafe. He was driving a shiny new car, talking about how good life was. He asked, "Why don't you upgrade your car, man? You still driving that beat-up Camry?" I smiled and said, "Because my money's buying freedom, not impressing people who don't pay my bills." 5 years later, that car of his was gone, repossessed. But my boring investments, they were feeding me every month. The 3% understand that flashy is fake, and freedom is forever. Chapter 7. Broke people avoid pain. Wealthy people face it. Now this one is heavy, so lean in close. Most people stay broke because they run from pain. They avoid discomfort like it's poison. But here's the truth. Discomfort is the doorway to wealth. It's uncomfortable to start a business. It's uncomfortable to budget. It's uncomfortable to admit you don't know about money. It's uncomfortable to say, "No, I can't afford that vacation." But every wealthy person I've ever known, they didn't avoid pain. They leaned into it. Let me tell you a story. There was a man named Elijah. I knew from the east side. Grew up poor, real poor, single mom, food stamps, all of it. By the time he was 18, he had 2 options: work construction or hustle in the streets. He chose construction. Started saving every bit he could. Ate peanut butter sandwiches for 3 years straight. Invested in cheap properties in rough neighborhoods that no one wanted. People laughed, said he was crazy. Today, Elijah owns 28 rental units, drives a pickup, wears old boots, humble. But when his mom got sick, he paid her hospital bills in cash. Why? Because he was willing to hurt now so he could breathe later. Most people aren't broke because they don't have the ability. They're broke because they don't have the stomach. They want the reward, not the struggle. But here's the rule. You don't get to skip struggle. You just get to choose which kind. You can struggle now and win later, or you can take it easy now and pay later, with interest. Chapter 8. The 3% handle failure differently. Let's shift gears. You know what failure feels like. That gut punch. That heavy silence after you lose something you worked hard for. I do too. First business I started, it tanked. I lost almost everything. Slept in my car for a week. I was humiliated. But here's what I learned. Failure isn't the end. It's tuition. Most broke people take failure personally. They say, maybe I'm not cut out for this. They quit. They retreat. They go back to comfort. But the 3%, they don't take it personally. They take it seriously. They study the loss. They extract the lesson. They try again. Wiser. Stronger. You know Thomas Edison failed over 1,000 times before inventing the light bulb? Someone asked him, "How did you feel failing so many times?" He said, "I didn't fail. I found 1,000 ways that didn't work." That's the 3% mentality. Failure is not a full stop. It's feedback. One of my students, Melanie, launched a business selling handcrafted soaps. She poured everything into it. First year, crickets. Sales were flat. She was crushed. But she didn't quit. She studied marketing, rebranded, found her niche. Today, she does over 6 figures annually on Etsy. Not because she got lucky, because she learned from loss. Listen to me. Your success is hiding behind your last failure. You just have to go back and grab it. Chapter 9. The broke crowd loves comfort. The wealthy live on the edge. Let me ask you something real simple. When was the last time you did something that scared you? Not like skydiving. I'm talking about making a hard phone call, starting the thing you've been putting off, asking for help, launching the business, applying for the job you think you're not good enough for. You see, broke people worship comfort. They build lives that are safe. Safe job, safe routines, safe goals. But nothing great comes from safety. Growth lives on the edge of discomfort. Every major breakthrough in my life happened after a stretch of extreme discomfort. Sleepless nights, doubts, rejections. But the pain sharpened me. It's like muscles. You don't build them by resting, you build them by tearing them, then healing stronger. The 3% are comfortable being uncomfortable. They don't look for pain, but they don't run from it either. They stretch, they risk, they leap. That's how you grow. Chapter 10. Broke people try to do everything alone. The wealthy build leverage. Let me tell you something. I learned the hard way. When I was young and full of pride, I thought I had to do everything myself. I didn't want to ask for help. I didn't want to seem weak. I didn't want to look like I didn't know what I was doing. So I burned out over and over again. And I stayed broke. You know why? Because I didn't understand leverage. Let me tell you what leverage really is. It's using people, tools, systems, and time to multiply your impact. See, broke folks try to carry the whole world on their back. But the 3%, they build machines. They find smarter ways to get more done with less effort. They hire help. They automate systems. They collaborate with others. They delegate tasks they aren't good at. They let go of ego so they can grow. Let me give you a story. A man I knew, Jordan, was trying to build a marketing agency. He had talent, no doubt about it, but he was doing the designing, the emails, the phone calls, the invoicing, everything. He worked himself sick. I told him, you don't need to do more. You need to delegate more. At first, he resisted. I can't afford to hire anyone. I said, no, you can't afford not to. So he hired a part-time assistant, then a freelance designer, then a project manager. In 6 months, his income doubled, and he was sleeping again. That's leverage. You don't build wealth with effort alone. You build it with strategy and support. Chapter 11. The 3% understand the power of relationships. Let's go even deeper now. You know how most broke people live? In survival mode. Always watching their own back. Competing, comparing, isolating. But wealth? It's a team sport. The 3% understand something the 97% don't. You're one relationship away from a new level. One conversation, one mentor, one investor, one partner. That's it. You've heard that saying, your network is your net worth. Well, it's not just a cute quote. It's a law. Let me tell you a story that changed my life. I was at a local event. I wasn't planning to go, to be honest. I was tired, had excuses, but I went anyway. While there, I met an older gentleman named Robert, quiet, sharp eyes, the kind of guy you listen to when he talks. We chatted for 15 minutes. Turns out he owned real estate across 4 states. He took a liking to me, said, "You've got hunger, son. Meet me for coffee next week." That coffee turned into a mentorship that changed everything. He taught me how to think long-term, how to buy properties right, how to create passive income, not flashy stuff, smart stuff. That one relationship, it changed my whole game. You've got to understand, people are doors. Some open to wisdom, some open to opportunities, some open to healing. But you'll never find the door if you never leave the house. Broke folks isolate. They gossip. They compete with everyone. The 3% connect. They learn. They serve first. Ask yourself, who do you need to meet? Who do you need to become to attract the right people? Chapter 12. The 97% waste time. The 3% master. Let's talk time now. Because time is the only resource you can never get back. Broke folks say things like, I don't have time. I'll do it later. I'm too busy. You know what they're really saying? I don't know how to manage myself. We all get the same 24 hours. Oprah. Elon, the guy flipping burgers. Me, you. Same hours, but different outcomes. Why? Because the 3% treat time like money. They spend it with intention. They invest it into growth. They say no to distractions. No to drama. No to time wasters. They use planners, calendars, timers. Not because they're obsessed, but because they respect time. I once asked a wealthy man, what's the one thing you never compromise on? He said, my mornings, because how I start my day decides where I end up. That hit me. So I started protecting my mornings. No phone, no social media, just thinking, planning, reading, writing, and over time, my whole life got sharper. Most people don't have a money problem. They have a time problem. They give hours to YouTube, but won't give 10 minutes to their future. They binge Netflix, but won't binge a business book. They'll drive 30 minutes to save $5 on gas, but won't spend 30 minutes learning how to double their income. Time is your greatest currency. The 3% don't spend it emotionally. They invest it strategically. Chapter 13. Broke people have an identity crisis. The 3% rewire their mindset. Now this right here is the deepest truth I can give you. Listen close. You will never out-earn your identity. Let me say that again. You will never out-earn your identity. If deep down, you believe you're average, poor, unworthy, unlucky, you'll find a way to prove yourself right every time. This is why lottery winners go broke. They get the money, but not the mindset. They're still thinking like the 97%, even though they're holding the wealth of the 3%. And what happens? The wealth runs away. So let me ask you something. Who are you? Not what's in your bank account. Not what your resume says. Not what your ex told you. Who are you? When no one's watching, are you someone who values growth? Are you someone who finishes what you start? Are you someone who keeps promises to yourself? Because the 3% don't just do different. They believe different. They believe they're capable, worthy, disciplined, strategic, and they build that belief over time, with action, with repetition, with affirmations, with environment. I remember looking in the mirror years ago and saying to myself, I am not a broke man. I just don't have money yet. That became my declaration. And every action I took afterward was filtered through that identity. If it aligned, I did it. If it didn't, I walked away. This isn't woo-woo stuff. This is brain science. Your brain follows your self-image like a GPS. Change the coordinates, and you change the destination. Chapter 14. The 3% are builders. The 97% are consumers. You ever notice what broke folks spend their money and time on? Shoes, gadgets, entertainment, trends. They're consumers. They live to spend, live to flex, live to escape. But the wealthy, they're builders. They build businesses. They build investments. They build skills. They build networks. They build legacy. Let me ask you, what are you building? Because every day you're either building something or distracting yourself from what you should be building. You don't have to start a company tomorrow, but you can start building your character, your habits, your savings, your knowledge, brick by brick. Broke people say, I'm not ready. The 3% say, I'll start now and learn as I go. There's a story I love about a man who wanted to plant a tree. He waited and waited, trying to find the perfect season. One day his neighbor said, you know, the best time to plant that tree was 10 years ago. The man sighed. Yeah, I guess I missed my chance. His neighbor smiled. The second best time is right now. So he planted the tree. That tree today, it gives shade to his grandchildren. Start building, even if it's slow, even if it's messy, even if you're afraid. Build, because builders leave legacies. Consumers leave receipts. Chapter 15. The 97% make excuses. The 3% take full responsibility. Let me tell you something I've heard more times than I can count. But I didn't have a good start. But my parents never taught me about money. But I grew up broke. But I've made too many mistakes. And I get it. I truly do. Life isn't fair. Some people are born into wealth. Others are born into survival. Some have mentors. Others have trauma. That's real. But I'm going to say this with love. You can't build a wealthy life on a foundation of excuses. The 97% cling to their story of why they can't. The 3% rewrite the story and say, now watch me. I'll never forget this one young man who came to me after a talk. His eyes were tired. He'd just been fired from a job he hated anyway. He said, I've lost everything. My girl left. My savings are gone. I'm living in my cousin's garage. What do I do? And I told him something he didn't expect. Celebrate it. He looked at me like I'd gone crazy. I said, this is the clean slate. The bottom, the foundation. You can't go lower than this. Now you get to decide who you become. 3 years later, he owns 2 businesses, paid cash for his first car. And the girl who left, she called him back. He said, no thank you. That's not magic. That's no responsibility. He stopped blaming, started building, and stayed consistent. You don't need a perfect past to build a powerful future. You just need to own it. All of it. The shame, the loss, the choices, the habits. You can't change what you don't take responsibility for. So if you've made a mess, good. That means you're human. Now clean it up and move forward. Chapter 16. Broke people wait for motivation. The 3% act without it. Let's kill another myth right now. The 97% are waiting to feel motivated, inspired, ready. They're hoping a good mood shows up before they move. The 3%, they show up regardless of how they feel. Listen to me close. Wealth doesn't come to the most inspired. It comes to the most disciplined. There were days I didn't want to make the calls, didn't want to do the writing, didn't want to sit through another boring meeting. But I did it anyway. And that anyway is what separates broke from wealthy. You don't brush your teeth because you're excited. You don't show up to your job because you're thrilled. You do it because it's required. So why treat your dreams any differently? The wealthy don't treat discipline as a punishment. They treat it as freedom. Because once you train your mind to move without waiting for emotions, you become unstoppable. Motivation is a luxury. Discipline is the engine. Chapter 17. The 3% track the truth. The 97% guess. Let me ask you this. Do you know where your money went last month? Every dollar? Most people don't. They guess, they hope, they assume. They check their bank account by scrolling, not by tracking. That's why they stay broke. But the 3%? They treat numbers like a mirror. They track, they measure, they face the truth, even when it's ugly. They know exactly how much they made, how much they spent, where the leaks are, where the growth is, and not just money. They track their habits, their food, their hours, their reading, their progress. Why? Because what you track, you can change. Imagine if a pilot said, I don't need a dashboard, I'll just fly and guess. You'd jump out of that plane. But most people live like that every day, with no feedback, no direction, no clarity, and they crash, financially and emotionally. Don't be casual with your future. Be exact. Start writing things down. Review your week. Adjust your approach. Don't wait for things to magically improve. Measure to master. Chapter 18. Broke people fear judgment. The wealthy fear regret. This one's going to sting. But it's truth. Most people don't chase their dream because they're worried what their cousin, their coworker, or that one negative friend from high school will say. They'd rather be accepted by the average than rejected while rising. They fear judgment more than they fear regret. But let me tell you something, friend. When you're 85, sitting in a quiet room looking back over your life, you're not going to care who laughed at your first YouTube video. You're going to care whether you tried, whether you built something, whether you kept your word to yourself. I'd rather be laughed at by the broke than applauded by the stagnant. Because here's the thing, you're going to be judged no matter what. So you might as well be judged while building your legacy. People will talk. Let them. They're not paying your bills. They're not raising your kids. They're not waking up with your dreams. You've got one life, one shot. Don't waste it trying to fit into rooms that were built to keep you small. Step out, stand tall, and walk your path. Because the 3%, they're not worried about applause. They're focused on impact. Chapter 19. Broke people think in days. The 3% think in decades. We're almost there now. This is where most people stumble. They think short term. They want results in 30 days. They want six-pack abs in a week. They want a business to work by next Tuesday. And when it doesn't, they quit. That's why they stay broke. But the wealthy, they think in decades. They plant seeds in year 1 and harvest in year 10. They invest with patience. They build with vision. They endure with faith. There's a Japanese bamboo tree that doesn't break the surface for 5 years. It grows underground, roots spreading, strengthening. Then in year 5, it grows 90 feet in 6 weeks. Was it doing nothing all those years? No. It was preparing for greatness. That's how wealth is built. The 3% have patience with process. They know what they build slowly will last longer. So I'll ask you, are you thinking in months or in legacy? Final chapter. The choice that changes everything. You've heard the truth now. Not theory, not hype, but real wisdom. Here's the truth. Most people will stay broke, not because they have to, but because they choose to think and live like the 97%. They chase comfort. They avoid truth. They delay action. They serve ego. They excuse failure. But you don't have to be most people. You can decide today to think differently. You can decide to build habits that outlast emotion. You can decide to track, to learn, to serve, to grow. You can decide to stop lying to yourself about what's holding you back. Because it's not the government. It's not the economy. It's not your childhood. It's your choices. Right now, this moment, you're standing at a fork in the road. To the left, same life, same patterns, same excuses. To the right, discipline, growth, wealth, freedom. You don't need permission, you need a decision. Let this be the day you say, no more average, no more excuses, no more waiting. Let this be the day you begin thinking like the 3%. Not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. I believe in you. But more than that, I want you to believe in you. Now go and build the life the 97% only dream of.